ISP is proudly supported by BCW Supplies. Yeah, all my cards, they fit snugly into a perfect fit, and then we slide them right into an Elite 2 sleeve. Those cards, hey, well, they're resting easy and protected in my Deck Vault 100. Ooh, it's a nice one. Well, all of my spiciest gems, well, they're on display in my Z Folio LX. Yeah, you could treat your collection with love by going to bcwsupplies.com. Use the code ISP10. Get 10% off all of your orders. Oh, yeah. And hey, maybe cards might not be your only thing. Are you into coins, comics? Maybe you want to show off your record collection? They've got you covered. Use the code ISP10 at checkout for 10% off your BCW Supplies purchases. BCW Supplies. Protect, store, display.
This is Patreon supporter Logan Peterson of Flesh and Pod, and you're listening to the only podcast that I actively give money to, the Instant Speed Podcast on 983 Media.
This is the Instant Speed Podcast, episode number 77. Our guest today is Stephen Cookus, aka DMArmada, is going to join us, and we dig into a whole bunch of stuff. And before I get to that, I got to let you know that this episode is brought to you by FAB Cards. Go to kfabecards.com. Let's hit the facts before we get to our guest. And there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, but the most important stuff is that a huge pile of organized play dates have dropped upon us. Mark it on your calendar because one of these might be near you. Either way, the big one is gonna be the Calling in Singapore. That's gonna be on June 9th through 11th, but there's a just laundry list of battle hardens. So I'm gonna just give you the cities. We got a battle hardened in Baltimore, and that's gonna be team sealed, and I am dying to go to this one and play. We got a battle hardened in Cincinnati, another battle hardened in Chicago, one in Hong Kong, another in Atlanta, and another one in Columbus. So there's a slew of more battle hardens and callings that are coming around the bend, and I have been told that the remainder of the 2023 organized play schedule will be announced at the Pro Tour in Baltimore at the end of this month. So another reason for you guys to check that out. I'm going to be on the casting team there alongside DMArmada, who is our guest. But I want to get to our contest winner. We mentioned a contest that is going to be going down for the event going on in Metropole Ruhr. I've got a Fabled package that is 99 euros in value. Gets you in, gets you a bunch of swag, some entry into a lot of the other side events as well. And our winner is Citizens of Lorcana, who tweeted with a wonderful response to the contest. So Citizens of Lorcana, thank you so much. We'll be letting you know and hooking you up with that package. Now, our guest this week on Instant Speed is DMArmada. And we talk about a whole bunch of nonsensical topics, but the most important part that we get into is the meta, what the implications are, who the dark horses are in this meta, what's driving the bus, as it were, and who's a passenger. And then we talk about another topic, which is tribalism. Yeah, this is another topic that we got into way back when with the professor that is starting to sprout up again. So we talk about all of these things plus more on Instant Speed with DMArmada. This episode of Instant Speed Podcast is brought to you by FAB Cards. Located in Utah, FAB Cards is a smart choice for all of your flesh and blood needs. Prepare for the battles you'll face through the world of Wraith by gearing up at kfabecards.com. That's KAYFABECARDS.com, and get all of the cards shipped directly to your door. Hey, if Magic or Pokemon is your jam, they've got you covered. FAB Cards has a plethora of TCG options, sealed products, and singles to keep you collecting and keep you competitive. FAB Cards, be who you want to be. The Instant Speed Podcast welcomes Steven.
That's me. Just me.
That's
just
it.
Me.
I was thinking about it, and twofold. Number one, no time. Don't have time. Okay. I'm busy. I got stuff to do. I made chili today. I went for a walk to the post office. I got stuff to do. I can't write intros for you, all flowery and stuff. You're Steven. That's what you are, okay?
Bingo. Problem solved.
Hey,
Easy
so
peasy.
they just announced like us doing the coverage, right, for Pro Tour Baltimore. Got Tannen Grace, Brian Gottlieb, Brendan Patrick, Matt DeMarco, DMArmada.
That's me.
Not Stephen Cookus. I told them, I said, you know, like I'm best known as Flake, like I've been Flake. Why did you get DMArmada?
They asked me what I wanted to go by. They were like, do you want me to use your real name or do you want me to use DMArmada? And I thought to myself, I literally had this thought. I was like, you know what? Flake's probably just going to use Flake. I can imagine he would be the one to like use Flake. So I'll just be his like compliment. I'll use DMArmada. And I think it'll just be like on brand.
Mhm.
And then you go and say Matt DeMarco and I look like the idiot.
I
look like the imbecile that has to live by his screen name.
So I get asked all the time, what do I prefer? And it's odd because it's even in discussion when people are like, oh, God, I refer to you as Flake. Like, that's so weird. I said, no, it's not weird. I'm like, that's who I am. Every other, entity that I've worked for has asked me. This time, SCG didn't ask. They didn't. I don't think they asked me because I would have totally said Flake's fine. Like go with Flake. But yeah, I suppose I guess you're just special.
LSS straight up asked me. They were like, "Hey, what do you want to be called on this this graphic?" And I was like, "Yeah, DMArmada's fine. It's no big deal. It's not." I didn't really think much of it, but now that you're pointing that out, now I feel like the idiot that signed his name like I don't know, some random like one of those tacky 2000s screen names with all the X's and the like equal signs at the end of the beginning so that it can look like you've got the medals to show for it in that first person shooter that we all played.
Oh, dude.
That's what I feel like.
If you had Xbox Live in like 2007, you know absolutely that if your name didn't start with like X, capital X, space, your name, like, you have to frame it somehow.
Capital X, lowercase x, big mother, lowercase x, capital X, and then just for the giggles, you got to put the two equal signs on the end.
Yeah, you just kind of give it a nice little framework. But yeah, you're kind of like when you see a flyer for some sort of flea market somewhere where it's like, and a special appearance by your local like mascot from like your AA baseball team will be there for pictures with the kids. That's kind of like the throw in that you got. And frankly, your face, your face on the advertisement, like you've got, first of all, you got Tannen that's looking like trying to identify an inner ear infection, apparently.
He's looking off to the side, which I love. I like that picture of him.
He's looking through your head like it's a telescope. And then there's you that's just like staring straight away. Yeah. I mean, look, it's a good crew. I'm not going to lie. It's a pretty good crew.
I mean, of all the people that they could have invited to provide coverage for this event, those are 5 of them.
Yeah. God damn it, you idiot.
There's 5 of them right there in that picture. They could have invited lots more, but they chose those 5 people.
True story. I was considering bringing Charmer on with you to sort of do but I can't. Like, it was supposed to be like a revival of our Chicago trio, but I couldn't do it. I can't. And I remember why, because I was sandwiched between, I was the meat in an idiot sandwich. And typically I am the idiot sandwich. I'm like a wrap, You
do understand that the choice of meats is what is referred to in the word sandwich. So like a beef sandwich. Like, so in this case, you're the idiot. You do understand that, right?
It's true. You're right. Like, you guys, because whatever I become, if I am replaced with like a really, like if Uber comes in and replaces me, it becomes like a quality entertainment sandwich. But you're right. You absolutely got me. You pinned me to the floor there with that one.
Yeah, you walked right into that one. You're literally talking to me about sandwiches. I know about sandwiches.
I did.
I know how it works.
Hey, I worked at Subway for 6 months. I was a sandwich artist. That was my job title. 6 months of the worst job I ever had in my life. One of the worst jobs.
Sandwich artist. What are some other great like job titles that are clearly just them trying to dress up like just sales associate. Like for example, my first job was at American Eagle. I was the person that sold like clothes, right? Jeans. I would also do backstock from time to time, and then I would come in because I was good at folding. I would come in and I would do like overnights so that I would basically just like overhaul the store, right? But my title, you want to guess it?
Oh
Just
God.
sales. So you want to guess what it was?
Were you like a folding technician?
No, that's pretty good though. You ready? It's even better than that.
Hit me with it.
Okay, I was a gene expert. I was a gene expert, and they would literally like, I'm not kidding. They would actually be like, okay, who's on call right now? We got a mother of 3. They go to a private school and they are allowed to wear jeans on Fridays. Okay, we need to get these 3 boys into jeans. Okay, call the gene expert. Who's on? Steven DMArmada. He doesn't go by that for another 10 years. Why am I talking to myself? Okay, go get him. And so I would go over to this mom of 3 and I would try to be very careful not to over care in it, like just push the care into the limits and try to sell them jeans and find them something that the kids just absolutely did not hate out of their minds.
I don't know why.
That was my job.
I literally just picture, and they had the headsets too, probably, right? For
Yeah,
sure.
you had the earpiece that went around the ear,
Yeah.
and like you had the things like, yep,
Yeah.
I'm on my way.
The same technology that safely brought Apollo 13 home is the same thing that's making you get the genes for this family of 3. Apparently, what I picture though is legitimately whatever a manager is just like, sir, unfortunately, Stephen is currently gening a Saudi prince. He's not available, but we will on his first jet ride home. We will have him on satellite call for you.
I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty good at that job. I could sell jeans. I could tell you what fit. I could tell you I could tell you like what size you wore. I mean everything. I was pretty good at that job.
Well, I
was a gene expert.
I worked at Sears and in their sports and toys. And wherever else somebody didn't show up. So I was selling shoes. I sold women's clothing. I sold $4,000 tractors, not knowing a single thing. They're like, 2-stroke or 4. I'm like, whatever gets you done, buddy. Like, I don't know. Not a clue. They're like, what's the difference between the lawnmower with the big wheels and the small wheels? And I'm like, probably about like 8 inches of diameter. And they're like, yeah, I didn't know. But the other one I thought of was Disney calls their employees cast members.
Yes, they do.
And guaranteed, like somewhere out there's some stupid place that like probably calls, like, I don't know if this exists, but I'm willing to bet there's a place out there that calls their employees like smile engineers or something like that. And
yeah, if you're like a dental technician,
for
you're
sure,
probably a smile engineer.
You're a smile engineer. And I think that, yeah, are you a dentist? Change your title to smile engineer and see what
don't the like the Disney, like the people that dress up as the characters, the people that like play they have like a special name for them. They're not just cast members. I think they have like a secondary name.
Like the people who play characters, right?
Yeah, like I think they're like referred to as like the like close friends of the character.
Wow, this is
because they don't actually say that they're. I had a friend who was actually close friends with a Disney princess. We'll put it that way. Close friends with Disney princess, and so I think I think that's what she was saying is that they have like a special name for it.
That's interesting because I'm now making parallels to the mafia, wherein you have he's a friend of mine, he's a friend of ours, it's an associate of mine. You know, you have all these different titles that are kind of like low key to discuss, like, you know, what the relationship of this person is, you know? So if he's a friend of mine, he's not connected, but you trust him. If he's a friend of ours, he's connected. So you got to treat him with that respect, you know? Listen, I watched The Sopranos once or twice. I know a few things.
Welcome to the Instant Speed Podcast.
Right,
everyone.
thank you. Flesh and Blood is what we're talking about.
It's great to be here with you, Flake. I really appreciate Matt DeMarco, everyone.
Yes,
Matt DeMarco,
former
not Flake,
former sandwich artist, future smile engineer, as well as I'm joined alongside Stephen Cookus, aka DMArmada, a gene expert. Yeah. Exactly. With all of his hookups, we're talking about Flesh and Blood today, which is not normally what we do, but we're going to do it anyways on the 77th episode of the program. I want to talk to you really quickly about what Outsiders is going to do to the meta, because I think we should talk a little bit about the game that we talk about, because I brought you on with absolutely no idea of what we're going to talk about. No, there's a plan.
That's a good call. That's a, you know what? If you're going to bring someone on, it might as well be me, because then
Yeah.
we'll talk about jeans and sandwiches.
There is an actual meteor topic, because I want to talk later on a little bit about a slight spike in tribalism in this game, as well as this thought of a big four, like the top four when it comes to card games. But before we get to that, I think we're heading into PT season soon, or we're in PT season, I would say, but we're a few weeks away from the actual tournament. What in your mind, gauge the impact of what Outsiders is doing to the meta?
That's an interesting way to approach it. Gauge the impact that Outsiders is doing to the meta. I will tell you how I feel about several of the heroes that have been highlighted in that set. I think Azalea is not just on the rise, I think is on a meteoric rise in both popularity and playability. And I don't think it was simply because of the results at the Chicago Brawl, but I do think that pushed it into nuclear levels of popularity and overall play. I have constantly regretted not saying this take on a video and instead just talking about it with others. I personally believe that Azalea is one of the more unfun heroes to ever play the game against, simply because the on hits in Ranger that Azalea can kind of push so easily basically make you play stop you from playing the game in such a way, probably more so than any other hero. And now I feel like she has been bolstered. And first of all, I should say this, and I don't mind that. I just think that that's something to be understood, that like the on hit effects of Ranger cards have to be good because they're hamstrung so much by having to use a bow. But when you can couple that with dominate effects and being able to push them like crazy, I think it is kind of easy to see how that combination can get really nasty really quick. Like you just look at like Red in the Ledger. It says don't play the game on your turn. Like you can play one thing. So like Guardian's like, okay, cool, I can play like my one thing. Just don't make any surges. Or like Remorseless, it's like, cool, you can play the game, just take a bunch of damage while you do it. Play the game, but your next attack has half of its actual value. Like all of these on hits make it to where like the opponent like doesn't gain the value or the enjoyment that they should. And I'm kind of here for it now that Azalea is like a lot more approached and a lot more playable. Though I don't know if I'm going to be here for it if she really does take root and take hold and kind of push, I guess, other heroes out in certain ways. But I definitely think Azalea is on a huge meteoric rise right now, just based on popular opinion. And it'll be interesting to see if she converts at a very large scale event like Pro Tour, which is coming up soon.
Well, would you say that it's the first thing I want to tackle is you say she's like a hero that is going to be, or is right now the most unfun to play against because she stops you. But we lived through a Starvo meta of dominated, tall to the wall, Oaken Olds and Crippling Crushes and such that followed up with Ice Hammers. Like those were nasty. Like, let's get real. Those were absolutely.
I think that is a great comparable to how Azalea has generally always felt like if Azalea does her thing. Like if you've ever played a game where Azalea does like Red in the Ledger, Red in the Ledger, Red in the Ledger, like it doesn't feel like any other hero you've played, except, you know what, I would say Starva. That's a really good connection. It feels a lot like that, which basically just turned off the game state for you until they were done. And in the defense, and I know there's going to be probably a lot of people that flame that take, and perhaps rightfully so, in defense of Azalea and just Rangers in general, to do that is far more difficult or far more intricate than a lot of heroes that can do similar things, but not to the less degree. So, and that is not a knock on the balance of the game at all. It's literally just, I think they have a great hero here that is really, really controlling as far as like what it can do, but that hasn't really seen the limelight because of the pieces that it had available or lack thereof.
The bad news is that if she is incredible and impressive, then she's got exactly 1,000 living legend points to go to get to living legend stat. Like that, it's not like it's a hero that suddenly gets a surge, but she's at like 400 or 500 living legend points. So, if she has a good season, she'll just cross the finish line and we don't have to deal with her anymore. Much like Starvo had like 950, I think, in its first month or so. Like it
was bonkers.
It cleaned house and it missed the mark by, less than 100 points, and it survived through another season and then eventually crossed the finish line. This is a whole different story because I don't think that she's on Starvo levels.
No, she's not. I want to make sure everyone understands being unfun to play against and being able to win tournaments are totally different things. And she stops you in ways because she can dominate like really powerful on hit arrows. She stops you in ways, but you still get to play the game eventually. Like you still have this back and forth. And I do think that she is incredibly fun to play, in my opinion, because I always like back in ARC days, she was the first hero that I really gravitated towards out of the ARC boxes before moving on to Viscerai. And so I tried like all these different variants of her, and it was always really fun to just do the arrow thing. But yeah, it's definitely not it's not Starvo. I don't think anything's gonna be Starvo, and I don't want to make it sound as though I think she's like problematic to the Starvo sense. I don't. I just think that she has a capacity now to really stop just games dead in their tracks with a newfound power level. I personally think that's really cool, and I hope we see more of it on the PT.
Do you think that aggro has just taken an absolute kick in the teeth?
That's an interesting question, and partially because I think aggro was already taking a kick in the teeth. When you look at like the dominance of the ice heroes right before this coming out of the previous meta, yes, we had aggressive heroes that were towing that line, and like Briar makes the comeback, and a variety of other, which is sort of like a combo deck, but it's like combo aggro. I don't know how you kind of lean that direction with regards to Mountain. There you go. It sounds like a weird off-brand version of cranberry sauce that you buy at Thanksgiving when the aisles are like completely empty and you're like, oh no, guys.
Well, they've got Crambro.
They have one Crambro left. Do I go for this or should we just skip it this year? Skip it. All right, yeah, I'm gonna leave it here.
Yeah,
like that's what it sounds like. No, I don't know. Is Briar more of a I think of her maybe more as a combo deck almost than an aggro deck, but. You look at how Phi dropped off. You look at how Dash kind of never really took off as far as the aggro variant until maybe recently. And you look at the combination of like I don't know, Lexi not really doing much in that way, and then of course none of the ninjas, Phi falling off heavily, but none of the other ninja like Katsu not really doing much. And then like what's your aggro deck at that point?
Well, that's
what am I missing?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. And I think what I'm settling on is that like Briar's going to get pooped on because of on hits from Lexi and Dominate stuff already. Like it's just the way. If they don't find, Channel Mount Heroic, it can be nasty. Not to mention, like, let's get real. Rangers have found Codex of Frailty, which can recover and get you back those remorselesses, right? They get you back those red in the ledgers. So you have 6 opportunities to find big cards that you need, as it were, which can eventually stuff these heroes that are already struggling to block, don't want to block, and are already trying to cobble together bigger turns. Like the way that I've sort of evaluated it is that Phi in its prime was the most consistent of aggro lists. But when it came to explosivity and ceiling of how much damage you could push on a turn, like Briar was unrivaled. Like Briar could blow past 40 damage in a turn if the stars aligned, no problem. It was just that Phi was like, okay, Phi off of an average turn is still 12 to 18. Phi on a blowout turn is like 25 to 35. Like those are how they would send it. I think Lexi, frankly, is the nice mix here because Lexi has also gotten some decent tools that a lot of people immediately just translate to Azalea. But what Lexi's doing now is with more significant arrows to fire, she's leaning more on, okay, well, I'm sending 3 at you. They're all 4 or 5, and they all are gonna mess you up. So how do you want to block this? Do you want to block this? But you're getting a
Yeah.
token, you're getting a this, you're getting a that. And I've been playing a lot of it, and I've actually found that when it comes to aggro, it's probably one of the better options that are out there.
Yeah, so that takes us back to the question, right? So before in the previous meta, you saw that we saw that Ice kind of pushed aggro out, right? Like Icelander was just so good, and Oldhim started to do the fatigue strategy that kind of just bottled up all aggro. And so you see your Briar players started to pivot off of like pure just Mountain Briar into like the fatigue killer where they had like recursion lists, and things like that. But now that we have the new set, the question I was going to pose to you is, what would you consider the aggro heroes? And I actually think Lexi, for one, is one of the aggro heroes. I was going to ask you how you feel, if you feel Azalea falls into that, because I personally am starting to lean towards Azalea just being an aggro hero instead of being something like a mid range that can sub in like a couple of defense reactions and some like healing or some Oasis respites. I feel like at this point Azalea just starts to hard pivot, kind of like the 2 lists that we saw on top 8 at Chicago Brawl, where they just kind of hard pivot into just playing all the best arrows and play aggressively. And I think those perhaps are your more premier aggro heroes than anything previous to this in the previous meta.
No, I think you're correct, because anything that's looking to push damage, the on hits, be damned. I think honestly, Azalea would still be. I mean, Azalea could have still done it. Like, there's no difference there. The reason that she wasn't dominating vanilla arrows and winning tournaments is because attacks with no on hits mean nothing. Like, let's be real here. I think the fact that now she has on hits, it means that the aggressive aspect of what she's trying to do. It's the same reason why you block Kodachi's with a Mask of Momentum up, because there's on hit potential. There's actual issues here. The difference is that now those on hits are not just like a dominated red in the ledger. It's a dominated red in the ledger with an inertia token, a frailty token. Your credit score goes down. Like, there's so many things. Like, your blood pressure spikes. It's terrible. Like, your cholesterol levels are through the roof. Like, that's
what Blood Rot does to you, man. Blood Rot Pox just does that.
Precisely. So I think she's always been an aggro list. The problem now is that the respect that she gets is that even if you wanted to block her, you're probably not, but it's going to be difficult, and the on hits are going to be nasty. It's that she gets to wheel more turns in a row, and your clapback is going to be less nasty, because whatever leaks through is problematic. It's incredibly problematic. You're giving her a ponder token to recover a card. You're getting a frailty token, so maybe your weapon sucks now. The card you had in arsenal is a little worse. God forbid you're playing Lexi, like that frailty token is worth 3 to 4 damage. It's impressive in that regard.
You know what? And that actually brings me to this thought that I had while we were talking just a moment ago. So we've talked about Ranger being taking the step forward into more of the limelight. We of course aren't talking about my spoiler card Riptide, because I don't think he's taking as many steps as the other 2 Rangers. Nevertheless, I could be wrong, first of all. So prove me wrong, please, because I love Riptide and I want someone to do some fun stuff with him. But the next question is, what about Ninja? Because Ninja's the other class from this set that has been a sort of a perennial underdog ever since, Crucible of War started to allow a shift away from Ninja being more dominant in the meta. And then Monarch comes out and kind of blows Ninja out of the water as far as Chain is concerned with aggression, and people basically just started coming off of Katsu very quickly after that. Unfortunately, do you think, being someone who absolutely loves Ninja, I'm going to fire a question over to you. Do you think Katsu has gained enough to start seeing consistent power play in an aggro role?
Okay, so there's a definitive answer to this, and it's because of what Michael Hamilton has said. Michael Hamilton played Icelander because he tried to make Katsu work and couldn't get it done, so he fell back on familiar territory ahead of the Chicago Brawl. Now, how much work did he put into it? How much actual did he just say, like, yeah, I'll fiddle around with it for a night. If I don't feel comfortable, I'll just fall back onto Icelander. I don't know. I didn't get that much information from that regard. Katsu got a whole lot of stuff. Katsu got all kinds of stuff. I played a bunch of Katsu when it just came out with Outsiders, all the new tools and toys and whatever. The problem is that the on hits from that hero are just more damage. It's like if this hits, it can become another card that amplifies the follow up, but the follow up is just it's more damage. And what players are finding is that vanilla damage is negligible. It gets you closer to the end game, but your opponent is going to present the same amount of damage potentially with more detrimental effects. I think that that's where a hero like Katsu kind of lags behind, and why Fi was so popular, because Fi was like, dude, this is all vanilla damage, nobody cares, but it's going to be so much that
Yeah.
you have to eventually get you cards. Because if we're just trading blows, I'm gonna outrace you. I'm in 5th gear, you're in 3rd, and that's the way it goes. You're not throwing any road bumps, hurdles, U-turns, nothing. I'm just gonna get there. And I think that's what the problem with Katsu is, because Katsu's on hits improve his future combat chains. Other than something like Dishonor, I totally get it. Dishonor's a great card, and that can have significant implications. But Dishonor isn't like, Mugenshi Release that just checks the previous card. Dishonor checks the whole chain and makes sure that all your ducks are in a row before it's like, all right, now I'm 4 and now we mean business. So I think that Katsu still has potential. I just think that in an Azalea world where you can get punished for long combat chains with Remorseless, or you get nerfed to one action, it's significantly worse.
I think that's the real ticket, is what does it look like in the meta? Because I actually do think that Katsu is a good bit better than he was. A good bit better. I want to emphasize the word good there. A good bit
That's
better.
a Gene expert word.
Yeah, that's right. He's a good bit better, but I wonder where he falls in the meta. And right now, I haven't thought enough about Katsu to actually know where he falls in the meta, to really think through his matchups and then actually try, like playing through his matchups or kind of watching through his matchups yet. I think that's on my docket, my to-do list. But that's going to be the interesting thing, because I actually do think that the smoothing out of the combo keyword, if you will, via a bunch of starters and a bunch of name swapping abilities, is one, just a brilliantly thematic way to kind of smooth that keyword out. But two, also makes it a lot easier to string together those combos and then push those like massive points of damage, which again, I like as a ninja, and this is kind of what Fi did. As a ninja, if you can play to the end game where you can get down to this like single digit life totals with you and your opponent, you have the edge having the two like Kodachis, where you can just take a card with each one when you're in like single digits low, like 5 and 4. You start taking a card every turn. So if he has the capability of stringing together 2 like 25 damage turns to put your opponent to like 10, he has the staying power to stick around in the end game. It just depends on what the meta even looks like for him to be able to do that. And I think the same thing in a weird way can be said of Zuri, and just in general, I guess the assassin class, but more specifically Azuri, because I feel like that's kind of where Azuri is angling towards right now. Except Azuri has the creation of these tokens as on hits in general, and the ability to hand disrupt with a couple of those switch in cards, which is kind of interesting. I think that's what gives Azuri a little bit more legs, perhaps, by threatening some of those scary on hits compared to like a Katsu, which doesn't have as many scary on hit.
Well, that's actually what listener Moscow asked, which is what we think about Uzuri and whether Sam Dando's results at the Chicago Brawl were a flash in the pan, or if she's got some staying power. And in my assessment, I think that Uzuri does have staying power. Anytime that you can do switcheroo kind of stuff and have any hero that has on hit potential and can block pretty decently, I think that is right there grounds for something to build upon, because a lot of her cards are going to block for 3, and she needs 2 cards and 0 resources to make a very uncomfortable turn. You could do if you have the most important thing is if you keep an isolate in your arsenal, you can block with 3 cards and then smash something. And that's really that's a nasty reality that you like. The most important thing I think that Sam did was he strayed away, and I'm sorry to say this, Charmer, but he strayed away from pummels as a pressure tactic and a disruption effect, and leaned off of daggers as a means of pressure as well. And what he said was, it's not necessarily about that. It's more so about just capitalizing on these uncomfortable turns and pressuring. Because his list, if I'm not mistaken, had 8 blues in it and like 10 yellows. It might have been less. It might have been 5 blues. And
I can't actually remember that. Now that I'm thinking about it.
It was it was 3 blue isolates, I think, and some other nonsense. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he was like, pressure. Is it sustainable? I mean, we'll see. Sam Dando is an excellent player, and he just.
I think that's the biggest ticket. Is we're gonna see. I think there's gonna be people out there that like look at Pro Tour, and then I assume there's gonna be people that play Uzuri and pick it up and try to like figure it out, and then have varying levels of success, like towards the top, towards the middle, towards the bottom with Uzuri. But if Uzuri doesn't like cut into the top 32 very heavily or cut into the top 16 or even make it to the top 8, there's going to be people that were like, that result was just ancillary. It was just, a small tournament, throw it off to the side. I worry that's not the case and that, people perhaps just haven't dug in. But there's always the possibility that, Sam Dando is literally just a really fantastically good player that figured out a deck, iterated on it, and then learned it better than anybody else. So I think the jury is certainly out, but I don't know. I do think that there's something there that I personally, one, enjoy about the game and enjoy about the hero, I should say. And 2, there's like the Icelander effect. It just gains value through both blocking and swinging, right? Like you mentioned at the outset, any hero that can block for 6 off of a 4-card hand, no arsenal, and then present 6 plus an on hit is going to be able to kind of like play these greasy games of back and forth and, kind of find the edge. If you can block with 2 cards, present no arsenal, present 6 in an on hit or 7 in an on hit, then you're kind of in business there. So
I think that's a good assessment. It's yet to be seen what Uzuri is going to look like at the Pro Tour. I think right now all eyes are on Azalea. It's basically that is the nucleus here. It's how do I play her or how do I beat her? It's basically what beats Azalea and what beats Azalea. Like that kind of triangular thing with my dark horse pick, which is Kano. I think.
Oh my God, you stoned! God, no, you did not say that.
So look.
Oh my God, I was literally waiting for you to shut up so I could say Kano is my dark horse pick.
Here,
crap.
Before that massive tournament win that had occurred off of a crazy Kano turn, before this was even organized, I submitted an article to LSS. LSS reached out to me and said, Flake, we need you to write a get prepared for Pro Tour article. And I said, sure, what do you need? And they're like, set us up for the formats, heroes to watch, all of the stuff. In that article, I wrote, and again, I submitted this, it was due on April 1st. So today's April 4th. So 3 days ago. I wrote the article that the few days prior, edited it, whatever. In that article, I had Kano as my dark horse because I said, I think a lot of people are forgetting to pack AB and heroes
running a lot of reds.
Yeah, running a lot of reds. Ice is no longer on the menu. So what else can really capitalize on red line? It's AB. And what my thought here is there might be a lot of Azalea players that think that they can just dominate arrows at a Kano without necessarily packing. Like their stock bringing bracers and cross wraps, so AB2.
Yeah.
Are they going to give up something like a tunic? Are they going to give up something like, are they going to bring AB3? maybe
No,
to
they'll do AB2 and then they'll do Oasis and then they'll cross their fingers. And I think that's going to be honestly that's going to be a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of people. And perhaps honestly, perhaps that's what you should do if you feel like Kano isn't going to be heavily represented. Is just dodge the hero like in your matchups. Just dodge Kano and hope that someone else has to deal with it and eventually takes the Kanos out. Because you probably don't have the space if you're Azalea, for example, to run AB3 and feel comfortable. Because like, are you dropping? You're already running 2 boots, right? You're running snaps and you're running perch for the block. Are you really going to swap in null rune boots? Possibly, but it's literally just for Kano. Literally just for Kano, which is going to be like a tiny percentage of that meta.
but
Like, are you doing that? You're not doing that. Like Lexi, you get shock charmers. At least you get shock charmers. That's kind of a pseudo stopgap, but that's like a little too late. And it's not honestly very good against wildfire anymore.
well, shock charmers are okay. I mean, yeah, the wildfire turret you can block things out,
not
but
really.
you're already getting AB on your bullseyes, right? So like that kind of is helpful as well. But what I'm more thinking about here is that first of all, we didn't see any Oasis respite at the Chicago Brawl, not a single one. And beyond that, if you are the Azalea player, like I have played against Kanos before where like when I was Oldhim and my move was just as soon as I find my Oasis, it just lives in my arsenal and it stays there nice and tidy and I continue to pressure until I need it. Is an Azalea player, first of all, they're never going to put it in their arsenal ever.
You can't.
You
You
can't.
can't.
So are you going to play a 3? Are you going to go IP forever well, that's a weird thing to say. But are you going to have an intellect penalty, like a quasi intellect penalty holding an Oasis respite because you're afraid of a Kano? Probably not. I don't think you ever even bring an Oasis respite because it's such a good arsenal card to hold on to. Pairs with Tunic when you need to smush something out, right? Which is in reality is Aether Wildfire for the most part. That said, Kano is like so ripe to just show up and shark a lot of these clowns.
Yeah, if you're really good with Kano, it is definitely a consideration. Because the 2 main heroes that kind of dominated the meta, which did have some interesting and decent play into Kano in Oldhim and Icelander, are still there, but are having to deal with a whole host of new issues that fundamentally require different uses of the slot. And you couple that them trying to figure out how they're going to sideboard for Azuri, how they're going to sideboard for Azalea, how they're going to sideboard for Lexi, how they're going to sideboard maybe for Ninja now. You couple that alongside of, the fact that people are being a little bit more aggressive in general and they're packing these different packages. And, is like fatigue Oldhim still a thing? Maybe we should consider fatigue Oldhim as well because maybe it was underrepresented, but it should, make its charge back. So maybe I need to start, figuring out either practicing the fatigue matchup, or maybe I should, start jamming down stuff into my sideboard that can, force like recursion. And then all of this leads away to Kanos to kind of capitalize on the dropped slots and the lack of protection against what is the best combo deck in the game, in my opinion.
Like the way I see it is that Azalea is the one driving the car, right? She's the top dog. She's the one driving the car, controlling the radio, sure. She doesn't need to necessarily sideboard when she's the one at the wheel. It's like, picture it this way. You're going on a road trip. There's 4 of you. The people packing their Nintendo DS and something to read and stuff like that, like that's the sideboard. It's because they don't have agency over what's going on. They don't need to focus. They're the ones that need to protect themselves or against the boredom of that car ride, as it were. Whereas Azalea is like, I'm driving the car. I'm good. Like, you guys need to prepare, not me. So I think that Azalea sideboarding is going to be a little bit weaker. And I don't think that a lot of players, now this might change if people hear this, but I don't think that people like Azalea players are typically too worried about Kano, and if they are, how much of their sideboard is going to ruin or hurt the rest of their game? Like, at a certain point when you're building a deck, you have to, and you're thinking about the meta, you're like, I'm going to have to take an unfavorable matchup against something. So you're balancing all those numbers. You're like, all right, I'm 55% against against Phi. I'm 60% against Dromai. I'm about 50-50 against Guardian, and I'm a 30-70 against Kano. Now, I could switch a whole bunch of stuff up to make that a 50-50, but then every one of my other advantages suffer because of I'm peeling cards out. So I think that Azalea is preparing for the meta as it is, and I think what she's going to be left vulnerable to are the high-end Kano players who can absolutely just rip it.
Yeah, unless those Kano players get absolutely eaten by Empress Dromai over and over again.
Yeah, and again, it comes all down to it. Like, if you want my evaluation of what the meta is going to be, it's going to be Azalea, Dromai, and I think it should be Bravo. That's my assessment, but it's probably going to be a Bravo Oldhim split, and then you're going to have the stalwarts who are still on Icelander, Fi, and Briar. That's what I think is. There's going to be some Lexi heroes, and I am all for that because I think that Lexi is really good right now, but I don't think there's going to be as many as I would like to see.
I think we're probably under appreciating Icelander's staying power in this meta as well, because I think if you're a good Icelander player, you look at this and you go, yeah, okay, I can still do this. And you can still do the disruption thing, even though the deck has had kind of like setback after setback, or, kind of pushback after pushback. I still think Icelander can, especially in the hands of a capable player. I mean, look, the best player in the world choosing to play that in that tournament, yes, dropped 2 games against Azalea. But at the same time, how much of that is like small tournament loss? How much of it is new deck, have to figure out lines, or how much of it is just now that's the better hero? That's the real question. And I don't necessarily think it's a huge amount that Azalea just shoots past Icelander. I think it could be a combination of all of it, but I don't think we should write off the Icelander power, as it were.
That's great. I'm writing it off. It's already
okay. Go ahead. Yeah. Write that. Did you get the pencil?
It's done. No, I'm writing it off. Like it's like
erasing it.
Yeah, it's gone.
Oh
yeah.
Can you pass the eraser when you're done?
What do I got? I actually
put it in a top loader.
You want to know how much I do erasing? I have an eraser here that, if you can tell, I took it out of the plastic, but you could clearly tell the edges on this. Like, I could build a house to how perfect.
Why do you own an eraser? Do you do a lot of pencil writing?
No. Do you want to know the precise reason why?
Yes.
So, several years ago, when I was in the hospital for 4 months, my parents came to Toronto to stay in my apartment. And my mom decided that there was a whole bunch of things that I absolutely needed to have in my apartment for when I was finally discharged. And part of that was like, I have like 7 cutting boards now. And I have 2 turkey basters that I don't even have a turkey. I have an eraser. And I was like, and look, I love my mom more than anything in the world. And that's why that eraser is still there, because for when I do have to write something off, I could write it on and then I could write it off. See?
That's right. You can. Bingo.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about something that has sort of bubbled up into the community, which is, I had this discussion a while ago, actually, with the professor. It's TCG tribalism. We went really into the weeds about what tribalism is and how it's reflected into Flesh and Blood and whatnot, etc. And for those who don't know, tribalism is kind of like what I do is good, what you do and everything else is bad, and you shouldn't do it and you're wrong for doing it. That's kind of what it is. And what I've seen bubble up lately is a little bit more of precisely what Flesh and Blood players were kind of chirping Magic players about being, and now it's kind of I've seen a little bit happen here. And for those who don't know, when Flesh and Blood was in its infancy, and it kind of still is, but when it was really fresh, there was a lot of chatter from Magic players about, this game is bad, or if it wasn't, it's like, okay, fine, it's not bad, but nobody plays it. Okay, some people play it, but it's clearly it's clearly a cash grab. Okay, it's clearly not a cash grab, but it is, XYZ, and they kind of go down these things. And purely they just wanted to sort of, attack it. Now, what I've been seeing with other games like, be it One Piece, Lorcana, Battle Spirit Saga, things like that, I've seen a lot of other chatter out there of like, oh, I would never be caught dead playing this game. Well, why? Like, oh, I'd rather like, quit card gaming than be caught playing like this title or whatever, this or whatever. And I have seen this within the Flesh and Blood community. And what's funny is that this is a conversation that I've had with other people in the community. I was saying like, are you noticing this too? And they're like, yeah, it's the same stuff that happened with Magic players, dumping on Flesh and Blood for no other reason than it's not Magic. And I want to ask you if you're noticing this too.
Yes, I noticed it in some respects. Yeah, certainly. And I noticed it a lot on, well, obviously it's mostly popping up on social media forums. It's weird. I don't hear those things said in person. I hear those things said on the internet, where a little bit of extra anonymity gives people a whole lot more power, which is very interesting. But yes, I think I first of all, I do hear it, and I want to chime in on the tribalism kind of talk, because you're 100% correct. It at the very outset of the game, when Flesh and Blood started to actually catch on and really kind of catch on and become something more than just a grassroots movement, there was a lot of tribalism towards Flesh and Blood, just in general, from a lot of different games, but a lot from Magic the Gathering. But it's very easy to say that, period, because Magic the Gathering is the largest game. So of course the largest community is going to be the most heard. There was a lot of tribalism. There was a lot of tribalism from Flesh and Blood players and Magic the Gathering players towards a game like MetaZoo. And whether you like it, whether you don't like it, whether you think of MetaZoo as a game or you think of MetaZoo however you think, the fact that it's very easy to see said tribalism. I mean, it exists. Period. End of story. And what I don't know. I was thinking about this a lot recently. In fact, I can kind of go on to it here in a bit. But the weird thing about tribalism is that it's always, unfortunately, probably going to exist in the TCG space because of the way that we attach ourselves to our likes. And we, as people, oftentimes want those likes to be what other people like. And there's a disconnect or a dissonance when someone likes something else as much as we like our thing, and either because they don't want to give it the time to try our thing, or because they are, too connected to their thing, we push back on that. We also, as just a society, perhaps, or as just people in general, have this fear of losing our thing to the new, right? And that's kind of, I feel like, what a lot of Magic the Gathering players perhaps felt if they were expressing those tribalistic kind of mentalities. Perhaps they feel that they could be losing their thing to the new thing, and it's probably what spurs on a lot of Flesh and Blood players to feel that same feeling towards something like a One Piece, which is apparently doing incredibly well from what I've heard. I haven't followed it myself, but congratulations to them. That's awesome. Or to, a game like Lorcana, which is, has a lot of buzz and has the capacity to do some, pretty huge things on the, Pokemon side of the spectrum, as far as collectability and possible gameplay is concerned. The fundamental of it is that we as people don't want to lose the thing we like. And we also attach ourselves, possibly too much in some cases, to the things that we like, to the detriment of staying open, or at least understanding that there are other things out there that could also be enjoyable. And I think that is a huge blow to the space as a whole, because funnily enough, the TCG space is incredibly tight knit, but also incredibly competitive. Like, I'm sure you can speak to this. TCG players and just card game players in general will latch on to a few things and not have the disposable income or the time, the resources available to go super wide and super deep into each of those hobbies, right? And so it's very easy to understand when you see that how vitriolic the tribalism can get with regards to TCG games. But unfortunately, that can come to a detriment to the overall space. And so, like, if you wanted your game to be, loved and supported, in some respects, it actually may behoove you to go and also support other card games and find success or cheer for their success in the space, because the space is so small that for for like all card games to grow, you need more players in general. And for card games to grow, you need other card games to grow and also push them to their, to be their best in a lot of ways. It's like a weird dance that TCGs do.
I am first to admit, unapologetically, mind you, that I have dunked on MetaZoo purely from stemming from the Dagan White situation, which, for those who don't know, he was basically the TLDR is that he was disqualified from one of their first major tournaments because he tweeted something so passive, things that I tweet practically all the time. And he was basically kicked out, ridiculed, and treated like garbage. It's just the fact of the matter. What I will say, however, is I have also been in other TCG spheres, namely Gwent, where I have never seen a more toxic community of, okay, you're with us, we like you. Oh, you're playing another game? F you, get bent, you're garbage, you're stupid, and I like the most terrible things. It's the truth. And I have spent so much of my life within that game and that community, and I'd say that, a lot of people that I've met there, I absolutely adore. They're like my family, but the vast majority were pretty bad. And it wasn't, but it wasn't even about the game necessarily. It's like they couldn't separate the person from the game either, which was very scary, because it's like, if a new game came out, like when Runeterra came out, Runeterra is a mainstay now. Magic Arena is a mainstay now. When these new games came out, and Gwent was in a so-so spot, people would be like, oh, I'm going to try this game. I'm going to, and God forbid you made a video about it. The video comments would be absolutely just loaded with people calling you a traitor and this and that. It's like, pardon me. Like, are you kidding me? Like, but that's when I moved, like I moved on to Flesh and Blood primarily. And I tell people, I'm like, I'm not a Flesh and Blood player. I'm a card game player. This just happens to be the game that I spend the majority of my time making content for and doing things for. But I have never identified as a as a Flesh and Blood person. I always tell people it's like one of my favorite games. It's not my favorite game, and it's not who I am. And this is what really kind of I just wanted to like sort of talk about this, because I think that it kind of goes by the wayside very easily, because it might just be in one 24-hour social media news cycle where something happens. And I get it. Like, I totally get it. Lorcana hasn't released their rules and stuff like that. And I can understand when people are not hyped about it. But to actively say, I would never be caught dead playing that game. Why? Why would you never be caught dead playing with something? For the same reasons that you're questioning why people are hyped about it, you are also sort of destroying your own argument about it. You're like, wait, you know nothing about the game. How could you be hyped about it? Okay, then how can you also say that you'll never play it? Like, it's the kind of thing. And what really got me laughing a ton was when Battle Spirit Saga got Avril Lavigne to tweet about the game.
Yeah.
And there were actively people in the Flesh and Blood community replying to her saying, hey, if you want, like, I could show you Flesh and Blood. Have you tried Flesh and Blood? As if she even plays any of these games. Like, as if she's like, the analogy I used was all these people tweeting at Tony the Tiger to try Cheerios. Meanwhile, he's in the back of the room eating a gazelle. not.
I don't know. See, so I don't know if I count some of those comments, because I actually saw that post too, and I actually saw a lot of the people talking about Flesh and Blood as well. I don't necessarily believe that all of those would be considered tribalism. I think that's literally a bunch of people saying, "Yeah, here's a great game that I care about too. You should try this."
That's
I think
fine.
there is a fine line between, proselytizing your game and tribalism, and I think there's also a line between criticism of a game, a la MetaZoo. I am critical of that game in a variety of reasons, for a variety of reasons, I should say, and also flaming the game and acting in a space of tribalism, right? We can both agree that the situation you described with MetaZoo was pretty poorly handled, and there have been other decisions as well that have been pretty poorly handled. But am I going to think less of a person because they enjoy MetaZoo? No. And I would challenge anyone to rethink their stance on games in general if they feel that way. If you look at someone who enjoy, and it's interesting, I actually forced myself, because I bought like a starter set for MetaZoo, and I actually tried I opened it and I tried the game, that sort of stuff. And I forced myself to go and watch other people's content about MetaZoo. Not necessarily because I wanted to dive more into it. I found the opening experience like, oh, this is interesting. It was nostalgic because it was trying to, pull on the nostalgia factor. But I forced myself to watch people's content on it because I wanted to see if people were actually passionate for the game. And I wanted to recognize that whether or not I personally like the game or the experience, there are people that actually enjoy it, that find value in it and find value in said community. You don't have to be one of those people. I don't even have to be one of those people. But I am mature enough to recognize that there are those people. And because there are those people, I should probably, at the very least, support them because they found something they enjoy in the space that I enjoy, and that is TCGs.
Yeah. And you know what it's like? It to me, it's kind of like the situation where um you go to a party or a gathering and there's like 40 pizzas, and you're sitting down eating the pizza you like, and you look to your left and somebody's enjoying their pineapple on pizza, and rather than say, "Hey, pizza's great, isn't it?" You're saying, "You're a clown for eating pineapple on pizza and you should be ashamed." And it's not like they're saying, they're not freaking waterboarding you with a pineapple pizza. They're just eating it themselves and enjoying themselves. And that's perfectly fine. I think that for me, the Avril Lavigne thing was just all part and parcel to the fact that it's like there's just and I get it with you. I get the whole point of like that whole meme of like, oh, have you heard of my Lord and Savior, Flesh and Blood? And the dude's at the door. Like that meme is evergreen, and that'll always be there. And it's a total ace in the hole for sure. But it's when people are like, I would never be caught dead doing this, or like, you're stupid if you like this, or oh my God, what a stupid thing. Like, I can't believe no, like that I think needs to be put to rest. Now, if there was like babies on the pizza, then that's an active get your pitchforks, we need to solve this.
I'll say this. I think that tribalism in TCGs, in the TCG space, just has no place. It should not exist. And in a lot of respects, and this is 100% serious, I feel like if you meet someone who likes a card game that is either a card game that you've not experienced or a card game that you don't like, that you should still, at the very least, appreciate the fact that they are in the same space as you, and therefore, I don't know, give them like the old clap on the back, because when you support any TCG in like a very general sense, you are supporting the hobby itself in some respects. But I will say that if you like the Toronto Raptors, you are a trash human being, and you should not. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
no,
first of all, you're
tribalism in sports. Now we're really talking, because this sports is the literal number one place that tribalism shows
absolutely.
up.
It's incredible. And there's like a Jerry Seinfeld bit where he's talking about like you can spend your whole life rooting for a player that plays for your team, and the second that they change clothes, you hate them. So let's be real.
Burn the jersey.
Yeah, it's like and he's like, let's be real. You're not rooting for the player. You're rooting for laundry. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. But you came after Toronto, where my entire room is draped with Montreal related stuff. So it's fine because yes, Toronto sucks. Like they're
No. I just wanted to make that fantastic segue into the number one tribalism like related pastime, and that's sports. And it highlights the fact that unfortunately, you're never going to get it from get away from it from TCGs. TCGs aren't immune to this because it exists across like all human pastimes. It's just not a thing that you can break. But fortunately, if you know what's coming, I guess is the best way to say. Like if you know that it exists, and then you have the maturity to look at the space and understand that we're all, although playing different games, like, I don't know, here's Dice Masters, for example. You ever played this game? Game's freaking amazing. This game is one of the best games, in my opinion, one of the best games ever made. And I have this sitting on my desk and I'm like, love that game. You may not have any experience with that game at all. You may not know anything, but the fact that this game exists and it's fun to play and it can be enjoyed by people, and there's a great little community around this game is huge and should be applauded because it's people that came together to enjoy experiences related to card games or games in general.
Well,
I think it's cool, man.
What I like is that your whole thing about like if you're just supporting people and their hobbies, like we're all in the same space. The way I envision it is that we're all in the same pool, and if you're saying like, "Oh, screw those, I'm going to swim to their side of the pool and pee in it, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to be immune to this."
It's never going to reach me.
Yeah. That's kind of the same. Like that's kind of where we're at here. So when you're dunking on other things, now there are some things out there that are just inherently bad and deserve, some ire or some criticism. That's perfectly fair. That's
100%.
Certainly. But if you're just peeing in their side of the pool because you don't like the color of the dude's shorts, like
because it's not your game.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why do you hate them? Because he's over there. But if he came here, he's fine. He's a great dude. But
we're in.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. All right. We spent too much time talking about pants, I think. So we're gonna have to axe one of the topics to sort of fit this into a nice bow, but it's okay.
Oh no, which one did we axe?
We were gonna talk about Flesh and Blood as being a top 4. But it's all good.
Oh, no one cares about that.
No.
Everyone knows it's already a top 4.
Yeah, well, we'll dig into that.
Dangle that carrot.
I got Brendan Patrick on next week, and I know Brendan's got probably a nice juicy carrot he wants to dangle in front of me, like you said. And Brendan's really good at just saying things that are not wrong, obviously, not bad. He just likes to sort of grease the wheel to make sure that, there's a nice little dialogue that can pop out of it. He's good at that. He's very good at that.
Stokes the flames.
Oh, definitely. The guy is just human gasoline, and he just goes and belly flops onto the fire, like for sure. All right.
That's pretty accurate.
Let's be real. That's why he's on the broadcast team. And that's why, what's funny is that I was talking with Tannen, and Tannen's like, he's like, yeah, like, I'm probably going to be mostly play-by-play. He's like, Brendan's probably going to be mostly, color analysis. Brian really wants to only do play-by-play. He's like, so then there's you and Armada. I'm like, yeah. He's like, pretty sure you both could do whatever the hell you want. I'm like, yeah, I think so. I'm like, to a degree. But pair us up and we're kind of off the chain. Like, that's the problem.
That's the best part. No. That's why people show up.
I know.
Why people show up.
We had like 1,500 watching us be idiots on the Chicago Brawl, which is actually pretty significant. I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. That's people want to see the idiocy mixed in with like moments of genius. That's what they want.
Oh, well, we know which side of the desk those are coming from.
Yeah, we get one of those things. We'll present one of those to you at a time.
Yeah, it's like, like you can't have you choose two. It's like, okay, intelligence, entertainment, and the show running on time. Like you can choose two. Do you want an intelligent show that runs on time? No entertainment value. We will give you the facts. We will end it. Do you want it to be entertaining and run on time? You're not going to be told any of the strategies or any of the cards being played. And if you want an entertaining, insightful show, get ready for like 40-minute post-game discussions.
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna bring one of the, it's like you flip a coin, and today I chose, I choose violence today. It's that, except I choose idiocy, or I choose to just be strategically right up there. That's what we're gonna shoot for on the Pro Tour.
I'm excited. I hope they put us together, dude. I don't know.
Me too.
Like we do kind of get to decide to a degree, but at the same time, it would be nice to do that. All right. So ends the main discussion of the Instant Speed Pantscast, which we discussed. I do have some questions from the community as well as a game I want to play with you, but we're gonna save that for the Go Again segment with you, Stephen. Apparently, DMArmada, which was coined
you
by
keep doing it too, and at this point I'm starting to I feel like I'm starting to be convinced that my middle name does start with a J. I gotta check that.
Well, there's Homer J Simpson. And Mara called me Matt J DeMarco and called you Stephen J. Like she just throws a J in the middle of everything, so it's kind of a Mara Faris thing as well. Ultimately, Stephen J Cookus is gonna be. I call you Stephen Armada. Like that's your name to me.
Yeah, you do, which is interesting.
That's your name on your passport is Armada.
Here it is.
All right.
Here it is.
You will be joining us for Go Again for all our Patreon subscribers to enjoy. We get a little unhinged off the rails, which we normally do. But for those who are opting to save their hard-earned money and not listen to the rest of this, where can they find more of the Dice Master Armada?
Well, first of all, if you're not seeing this Go Again segment, you are missing out on one of the hottest Disney takes perhaps of all time. I don't know. It's a pretty hot Disney take though. So you probably want to tune in for that because I have some thoughts on one of the questions because I looked at one of the questions early. Second of all, you can check me out on youtube.com/DMArmada where I do videos about card game stuff because I like card games. And you know what? I'm not a tribalist. I like lots of different card games. Second of all, you can check me out on Twitter at _ So what is it? What is it? How do you do those things? Like
it's at Armada _
DM, something like that. I don't know. I don't tweet it myself, so I never type my own name. Do people do that?
I mean,
I don't know.
I think I've Googled myself once, but not recently, and I kind of am afraid to do it.
Oh, I'm gonna do that later.
Google me or yourself.
I'm gonna find out what I can find about you.
Oh god!
If I can I'm gonna find all the information. I'm like, wait, I didn't know that.
Wait, what's this whole thing? Why is he sitting with Chris Hansen? What is this?
How does this work? Yeah. That part's gonna come out. It's gonna be a problem. But yeah, you can find me there on all the socials at DMArmada, and you can come hang out with me. It'll be great.
Wonderful, buddy. I love you very much. To everybody watching, listening, wherever you are, thank you for joining us. To our sponsors, FAB Cards. You can go to kfabcards.com, get all your singles and sealed product over there, as well as BCW Supplies. Use the code ISP10. Get 10 whole percentage points off of whatever order you want if you go to bcwsupplies.com. And of course, to our Patreon subscribers and supporters, you guys are freaking amazing. So stay tuned for the Go Again segment because it's for you. Catch you next time on ISP. Don't forget, you're not losing if you're learning.
Well,